Lots of snow. Right, guys, so today I'm going to show you a little bit of my training session. I have my secondary squats and deadlifts today. I'm changing a few things about how I'm doing it. I'll explain in the video. But yeah, I have 60 bar squats, and then I have single deadlifts. But yeah, it's been something like crazy here. We have a blizzard coming through actually. It was really bad on Wednesday. Like, it took me an hour and a half to drive what normally takes me like, I don't know, like 10-15 minutes, like depending on traffic. But because there was a ton of snow and came out of nowhere, it was rush hour traffic and whatnot. It took me basically 5 times the amount of time to get home. And so we have about 40 inches projected over the weekend. The storm is supposed to roll in around like the peak like Saturday nights going into Sunday all day. So yeah, not super excited about that. That's like the shitty thing about like living in Utah is that snow is great, but like when it snows a lot, and then makes it really hard to go places. It's kind of scary. I did get snow tires on my car though this morning because I did not have them, and it connected to my Bluetooth, so I had to do this again. But I got new snow tires because like my tires are like 5 years old, and I really need new ones anyways. So yeah, I still feel pretty sick. I've been sick since like last Monday, and it's like I'm almost 2 weeks, so like I still feel kind of shitty, like really tired. I lost a lot of weight out of nowhere. Like, obviously I haven't been eating as much, but like I've actually been like eating more, but somehow with my metabolism, like it just adapted upwards a lot. So I've had a lot of fatigue I've had to deal with, and it's been really frustrating training. I think it's going to be good for you guys seeing like a lighter secondary day, my thought process behind secondary days and whatnot. So I'll show you guys that today. Right, so very briefly, I wanted to go over some changes I made to my secondary days with my coach this block, and I'm going to show you guys at the end of this a little bit of a talk through of a sort of a flowchart / like checklist I use with my own athletes when determining like what to change with their secondary days to make their primary days feel strong. And so a key principle to understand is that everything that we're doing in our training week and our training microcycle, it comes back to making that primary day strong. And the reason why we have, why we don't just lift once a week for each lift is because typically for most people they're going to need probably about twice a week frequency to maintain technique on the lift, be able to get enough overall stress throughout the week to drive adaptations as well, in a way that does not drive fatigue as well. If we can sort of distribute our weekly stress in a way that allows us to recover better, it allows us to get that weekly volume just more of a productive way where we can have higher output too. It makes sense to have other days where we can drive that progress, that intensity, because there's multiple components of strength other than just heavy sets. There's technique, there's muscle, there's a lot of different things essentially. So what I did, so I've overall been feeling it's just a lot of fatigue on my primary days on squatting. Now this is probably compounded by the fact that I have started to ski about once per week, so I know that's another stress, but I've also gotten much stronger on my squat and on my deadlift, and I've been noticing that I've just had more overall systemic stress and specific stress as well in like my hips, my legs, and just my squat hasn't felt strong, my deadlift hasn't really felt very strong. And so again, going back to what I said earlier, secondary day sets up your primary day for success. And so what my coach and I decided to do is sort of lay back a little bit on the intensity, like relative intensity and the absolute intensity on my secondary days, and pull back the actual work to basically doing strictly percentage-based ascending sets, right at about 3% weight up to a target goal percentage for that day. That's pretty submaximal, and doing higher reps because one of the things I've learned about myself is that I generally have about one really productive top set per week on my squat and my deadlift. The rest of it has to be, pretty light, also more variation. One change I also made is that we tried doing conventional twice a week this block, but my back was just getting really, really fatigued from that. And I seem to be able to get more deadlift volume in and recover better if I have one conventional deadlift day and one single deadlift day. So that was really just to redistribute tissue stress to where I can feel a little bit more recovered on my secondary days and still getting a good stimulus. And so one of the things that happens as you get stronger, as I've noticed, is that the polarity of intensity on from your secondary days and your primary days typically needs to be a little bit higher, because as you get stronger, I'm a mid 700 pounds deadlifter. I have to go pretty heavy. If I'm getting like an RPE like 7 instead of 5, that's like still like 562 pounds or something like that. That still is relatively heavy. And so typically you need to back off of the absolute intensity by quite a bit. And so, this is something where you'll find that you watch a lot of lifters who are really strong. Their average intensity tends to be lower. So they don't do as, there's probably bigger back down work on their primary days. And there's probably going to be lighter secondary days, or ascending sets or larger drop down works, just to be able to manage that overall stress a little bit better. Because as you get stronger, it's going to be overall more stress on your overall nervous system and your muscles. So it makes sense to have a little bit more intensity, polarity, and maybe volume might change slightly. But typically, I don't change volume. I don't think lots of powerlifting coaches change volume like that much, because people take more of like a moderate approach with volume right now, not an extreme one, especially with powerlifting. And the biggest thing we have to basically augment our actual volume is intensity, I feel like, as powerlifters. So that tends to get manipulated a little bit more. So in my case, a little bit less overall in intensity, a little bit higher reps just to train my muscles a little bit more, but still getting a good stimulus that carries over into my primary day without excessively fatiguing me. So I'll show you guys that flow chart in this next clip and explain a little bit of my thought process behind it. All right, guys, so this is that secondary day troubleshooting sheet I was talking about. I used to reviews for myself and my clients. It's important as a coach to have a decision-making tree and knowing how to basically troubleshoot different issues as they arise. Because as you get stronger, what powerlifting coaching is high-level problem solving and auto regulation, because people are changing all the time, and basically certain signs and things that your athletes are going through. What that means you need to do as far as what's in my program that might be contributing to that. And so basically this is what I kind of do. So basically there's two sort of feelings of training that are going to be issues. There's going to be lagging, which basically means you feel overly recovered and weight just feels really heavy, or there's fatigue, where obviously you just feel beat up and your performance is low. Both these result in lower than expected or lower than we would like performances on our primary days. So if you're talking about lagging, we're talking about the bar feels heavy. But what we'll do there sometimes is reduce secondary day to primary day rest time. This will basically help us feel a little bit more primed for that session. Be able to just feel a little more in touch with our technique, and just having a little bit more of that is just exposure to that lift. For example, with my squat, I actually perform a little bit better if I have less rest between my secondary day and my primary day. I was having a longer rest period between my primary day and my secondary day, and or secondary day to primary day, and I noticed I was not as strong. My technique wasn't as good, so kind of flipped that around where I only had about a couple of days of rest, and my squat started to feel much better. Or another thing you can do is sort of lower rep ranges or increase intensity on your secondary day. A really common way of doing this is like adding in like a heavier top set, say within normally you do like a 3x8. Well, maybe you feel like the bar feels really heavy. Well, maybe I, as a coach, might add in a top set of 4 or something like that, like RPE 5 or just like 6, something like that. Well, to sort of help you feel more in touch with that intensity. Lack of explosiveness or pop primary day. This is hard to explain, but any powerlifter kind of knows. Like, you don't feel like you have like actual power. You don't feel like you can move the way that you want to. It kind of goes along with like feeling heavy. But like typically, it's just like you just can't move fast. There's no explosiveness. This might mean that, in the case of being lagging, you feel over recovered, you might need to have a little bit more muscle group work on a secondary day. So maybe your quads feel flat, for example. You add in a little bit more quad volume going into your squat day. Your triceps feel kind of like over recovered and kind of flat. Like you put a little bit more muscle group work on that. Or you can raise rep ranges and volume on a secondary day. This is just going to allow you to essentially train a different. If something feels like lack of explosiveness, it's probably due to like more like a neurological fatigue of like being like too overly fatigued, or something like that, or you just feel like you're just too fresh in a sense. Like, it's hard to explain, but anybody who kind of has gone through it like knows it. With my rep rating is like you're going to be able to get in more volume, more work without really, I guess, interfering as much with your strength output on that primary day, because you're training just a different subsystem of strength a little bit more. Or you might be raising the volume that you do in terms of like rep ranges, or the volume in terms of like sets. that you do, just because you just need a little bit more and more work in general. Now, going over primary day fuels fatigue. So again, you just feel really beat up. You're just tired. You're sore, like all this stuff. General full body systemic fatigue. So you just are tired, like walking around is tough. Like you wake up, you're like, nope, I do not want to do anything. I feel like I'm done with lifting heavy circles. That's the feeling. Might want to increase your secondary to primary day rest time. This is something that I see a lot of times with deadlift programming. People have their secondary days too close to their primary day. And you'll see that we have to do that, where it's like, in general, like a good rule of thumb, if you can do it, is like the law of 72, like having like 72 hours, like be before your session, be like rest days, and benching, like you typically don't do that. But like if I have like 72 hours or less than that, like I'm benching like within 72 hours of that, of my primary day, I'm probably going to keep that relatively light because I want to still be primed for that. But that's something that you can do there. And then lower relative intensity overall stress in your secondary day. So, going just lighter RPE, like what I'm doing right now, doing more like lighter percentages, lowering down your volume. Maybe you'll take away a set of, squats. So you put that out for, something that's less stressful, like a belt squat, something like that. And then more specific muscular fatigue. So choosing different exercise to redistribute stress. So different exercise tax different areas of your muscles differently. So a leg press is going to be more of like, your vastus intermedius, your vastus lateralis, more of your hips. And so if you're like, I really feel just beat up in my hips, well, maybe your squat volume isn't that bad, and you kind of need that in to keep the athletes and technique in place, but they feel beat up. But we were having leg press there. Okay, well, cool. We'll just put that in for leg extensions. I had one of my athletes, Hansen, actually, who we had a lot of adductor soreness, and he actually eventually did get some sort of adductor injury, which we have since rehab from. But we just do squats, and then his only accessory is leg extensions, just to get that in. That's what he responds well to, and that allows him to recover in time. Or just decrease volume from muscle done on your secondary day. So again, usually we're talking about increasing or decreasing volume. We're talking about, 10, 20%. So like typically 1 or 2 sets up or down. Just, allow for less muscle damage. So I'll have a link to this document in the comments below, or sorry, not the comments, in the description box. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys liked it, please like it. And yeah, apply for coaching if you want to get jacked and strong as hell in 90 days. Links down below.